No one in the galaxy remembered when humanity had first been classified as harmless. The designation existed so long that it had become doctrine, cited by admirals and historians alike with the same certainty as gravity or vacuum. Humans were mammals from a mid-grade death world, bipedal and short-lived, loud in speech but quiet in power. They occupied a narrow string of systems on the outer arm of civilized space and had survived not by dominance but by accommodation. They traded efficiently. They complied quickly. They protested verbally and surrendered materially. Over time, the galaxy stopped listening to what humans said and began watching only what they did, and what humans did, for generations, was avoid war, die in a galaxy that revered expansion as strength and extinction as inevitability. That choice was interpreted not as wisdom, but as submission. The Karathal Dominion had been the loudest voice in shaping that opinion. Their empire spanned nearly 800 systems, enforced by fleets whose doctrine was simple: overwhelm, occupy, erase memory. Species that resisted were erased from records within decades. Species that complied were absorbed and stripped of any ability to resist later. The Dominion did not hate humanity. Hate required effort. Humanity simply did not matter. The border systems where humans lived had been spared for a long time, not out of mercy, but inconvenience. Human space lay between two regions the Dominion had already pacified. The humans were small, their fleets outdated, their planets lightly defended. There was no urgency, no profit worth the redeployment of even a fraction of a Dominion battle group, until there was. The system designated H317 by human astronomers was nothing special. 1 star, 3 planets, 1 habitable world with a modest population, primarily civilian. Its value lay not in minerals or position, but in proximity. It sat directly along a hyperspace corridor the Dominion wished to stabilize for faster transit. Under Dominion logic, such obstacles were removed. The official demand transmitted to the system was formal, concise, and final. Evacuate within 40 standard hours. Surrender orbital infrastructure. Accept Dominion governance or forfeit the planet. The humans replied within 3. Their response did not include threats. It did not include mobilization. It was a diplomatic appeal, citing treaties the Dominion no longer recognized, asking for arbitration, offering trade concessions, requesting time. It was, by any measure, reasonable. The Dominion commander overseeing the region read the message once, then dismissed it without response. The human reply confirmed everything he already believed. They argued with words because they lacked anything else. The strike order was issued 17 minutes later. Orbital platforms were destroyed first. Then communication arrays. Then the planet's surface-based defense systems, which attempted to fire exactly once before being annihilated. The Dominion fleet did not target cities initially. They waited. They allowed the humans below to understand what was happening. Panic spread across the planet in waves. Civilian ships attempted evacuation and were vaporized before clearing atmosphere. Medical stations broadcast emergency frequencies that went unanswered. The Dominion did not jam communications. They did not need to. When the bombardment began, it was methodical. Energy lancers carved lines across continents, targeting population centers with mathematical precision. The Dominion had long perfected extermination without waste. They did not scorch entire worlds if it was unnecessary. They broke them just enough to ensure compliance was impossible. In less than 8 hours, the planet's surface infrastructure ceased to function. When it was done, the Dominion commander logged the system as pacified and moved his fleet onward. The humans did not retaliate. That silence was louder than any distress signal. Across the surrounding systems, non-Dominion species took notice. Some had traded with humans. Some had shared borders. None intervened. Intervention against the Dominion was suicide, and humanity had given no indication that it expected help. Human channels went dark. No fleets emerged. No declarations followed. For weeks, nothing happened at all. The Dominion's king received the report during a routine council session and barely acknowledged it. One minor species reduced to irrelevance was not news. The action was recorded as a successful expansion event and added to the ever-growing ledger of absorbed territories. Humanity was reclassified from minor compliant civilization to pacified remnant. A footnote.in the halls of the Dominion. Scholars would later debate whether the decision to downgrade humanity had been the first true mistake. At the time, it felt inconsequential. On Earth, far from Dominion space and far deeper than any alien intelligence suspected, the silence was not confusion. It was containment. Humanity had learned long ago that survival in a hostile galaxy required more than strength. It required perception management. The first human interstellar probes had encountered violence immediately. Early colonies had been burned not because they were threatening, but because they were visible. Humanity adapted. They retreated inward. They centralized authority. They built fleets in places that could not be seen from known hyperspace routes. They learned to appear small, and when H317 burned, every hidden sensor array across human-controlled dark space recorded it in perfect clarity, and no emergency councils were broadcast. No public announcements were made. The human population was told only that contact had been lost, and that investigation was ongoing. Panic was prevented not through deception, but through trust. Humanity had endured losses before. They had endured extinction events on their homeworld. They understood waiting, deep beneath Earth's surface, in a chamber that had no official designation and no public acknowledgement, the highest command authority humanity possessed assembled without ceremony. They did not argue over whether to respond. That question had already been answered generations ago. They reviewed the data. Satellite footage. Weapon signatures. Casualty projections. There was no anger in the room. Anger was inefficient. What existed instead was a collective recognition that a line long anticipated had finally been crossed. Human doctrine did not revolve around deterrence. Deterrence required an enemy capable of restraint. Humanity's war philosophy was built around a simpler truth. Some opponents only learned through consequence. The woman who entered the chamber last did so without escort or announcement. She wore no ceremonial uniform, only the matte black command insignia of strategic operations. Her presence altered the room's attention without a word spoken. She had not been chosen for her gender, nor because her appointment would shock alien observers. Those considerations were irrelevant. She had been chosen because every conflict she had overseen ended quickly, decisively, and with minimal loss of human life. She did not escalate wars. She terminated them. She listened as the final datasets were presented. She asked no questions. When the projections finished, she spoke only once. "Confirm the chain of command," she said. The answer was immediate. "Confirm autonomous authority," she added. "Granted." Only then did she stand. Human fleets began to move within hours, though no light in known space yet reflected it. Vessels constructed over decades disengaged from asteroid cradles and deep space docks. Crews who had trained for a war most believed would never come took their assigned stations without hesitation. Orders were transmitted through quantum-encrypted channels that had never once been compromised. There was no public declaration of war. Humanity did not announce its intentions. Announcement was a courtesy extended to equals. The general reviewed the final target list alone. She did not prioritize Dominion fleets. Fleets could be rebuilt. She did not prioritize infrastructure. Infrastructure invited reconstruction. Her focus was singular. The king, Dominion political theory rested on the absolute authority of its monarch. The empire was not federated. It was not resilient. It was a vertical structure enforced by fear and tradition. Remove the apex, and the system would not collapse immediately, but it would fracture beyond repair. Humanity did not seek revenge. Revenge was emotional. Humanity sought resolution. When the human fleet finally crossed into known space, they did so without fanfare. The Dominion did not recognize the war at first. That failure was not due to lack of intelligence, nor because their senses were inferior. It was because nothing about the human advance fit the Dominion's understanding of conflict. Wars, as the Dominion had waged them for centuries, announced themselves. Fleets gathered. Borders flared. Demands were transmitted. Even exterminations followed ritual patterns that reassured command structures that events remained within acceptable parameters. Humanity offered none of that. Entire relay chains went dark without distress calls. Patrol groups vanished mid-transit. Automated sentries reported impossible readings before ceasing transmission altogether. The losses were scattered, disconnected, easy to explain away individually. Central Command categorized them as anomalies. Local commanders were instructed to investigate with minimal force. Those forces did not return. Human ships did not engage at range unless necessary. They exited hyperspace already inside Dominion defensive perimeters, having mapped gravitational tides and reaction windows over decades of quiet observation. Their weapons did not announce themselves with bright emissions or warning spikes. Matter simply ceased behaving as expected. Hulls folded inward. Shields failed not explosively, but quietly, as if recognizing futility. Dominion crews died confused. The first major engagement occurred near a binary system that served as a fleet assembly hub. 3 Dominion battle groups were present. Their combined firepower sufficient to erase most known civilizations in a single engagement. They had been mobilized in response to growing losses, though no clear enemy profile had yet been identified. Humanity did not meet them in formation. Human ships emerged in fragments, arriving from vectors that should not have been possible, their arrival timing staggered by microseconds that avoided every predictive algorithm Dominion tacticians relied upon. The engagement lasted under 9 minutes. When it ended, the binary system glowed with debris and ionized gas, and no Dominion vessels remained intact. Survivors were statistically non-existent. Only then did the Dominion accept that it was under attack. Emergency sessions were called. Admirals spoke over one another, presenting sensor footage that contradicted every known combat model. Analysts attempted to classify the human ships, failed, then attempted to classify the humans themselves. The phrase began to circulate, quietly at first, retaliation. That word unsettled the Dominion more than invasion ever could. Invasion implied ambition. Retaliation implied memory. Reports filtered upward describing a pattern that could no longer be ignored. Human attacks avoided civilian population centers. Trade stations were bypassed. Occupied worlds were not bombarded unless they possessed military assets tied directly to Dominion command. On several planets, Dominion garrisons simply stopped receiving orders, and then stopped existing. This was not extermination, it was selection. The general did not watch these reports. She had already predicted them. Human war doctrine, refined through centuries of internal conflict before humanity ever reached the stars, prioritized collapse over conquest. You did not defeat an enemy by killing their people. You defeated them by making continuation impossible. Every action she authorized served that singular purpose. Her fleet did not grow as it advanced. Humanity did not reveal its full strength. Only a fraction of human military capacity had been deployed, carefully calibrated to apply pressure without exposing vulnerabilities. Each engagement provided more data. Each shattered Dominion force reduced resistance further along the path to the throne world. Within weeks, entire regions of Dominion space were effectively decapitated, their local rulers unsure whether to flee, surrender, or attempt resistance. Messages sent to the capital went unanswered as communication nexuses were systematically dismantled. For the first time in recorded Dominion history, fear flowed inward rather than outward. The king learned of the human offensive during a mandatory address celebrating a previous victory unrelated to the conflict. A junior advisor interrupted protocol to deliver an urgent update. He was executed for the breach before he finished speaking. The king listened to the rest in private. What he heard did not align with any threat assessment he possessed. Humanity was supposed to be weak. Humanity was supposed to negotiate. Humanity was supposed to beg. Instead, they were advancing without announcement, dismantling fleets, and ignoring opportunities to seize territory. It took longer than it should have for understanding to follow. When it did, it arrived as a quiet horror. The humans were not trying to win a war. They were trying to end one. Emergency defenses around the throne world were activated in full for the first time since their construction. Orbital rings powered up. Planetary shields engaged. Every reserve fleet within jump range was recalled. Generals pledged loyalty in increasingly frantic declarations, each attempting to reassure the king that the core would never fall. No human message ever arrived. The absence of demands became more terrifying than any ultimatum. When the human fleet finally entered the throne system, Dominion defenses opened fire immediately. The barrage was beautiful in its symmetry, energy patterns overlapping in mathematically perfected arcs. Against any known opponent, it would have been devastating. Human ships did not evade. They advanced through the fire as if the laws governing the engagement had been quietly rewritten. Ablative hulls absorbed energy until they did not need to anymore. Shield harmonics adapted in real time. Several ships were destroyed, reduced to expanding clouds of debris, and the fleet did not slow. Humanity had never believed in invulnerability. They believed in momentum. Orbital platforms were neutralized one by one, not destroyed outright, but rendered inert. Power grids collapsed. Defense coordination failed as command structures were severed with surgical precision. Within hours, the throne world skies burned with wreckage. Civilians watched from the surface as the illusion of eternal Dominion supremacy disintegrated above them. The king demanded negotiations. The request was broadcast across all frequencies, encoded and unencoded, pleading and commanding in equal measure. It referenced historical precedent, mutual survival, the shared future of galactic stability. No reply came. Instead, a single human vessel detached from the main fleet and descended toward the surface, passing through the fractured remains of the planetary shield without resistance. Its size was unremarkable. Its design unadorned. It landed on a ceremonial platform that had welcomed conquerors for generations. One figure disembarked. The general wore no helmet. She carried no visible weapon. Dominion guards lined the approach to the palace but did not fire. Orders had not reached them. Perhaps instinct intervened. Perhaps some deeper recognition prevented the act. She walked alone through corridors designed to inspire, or past murals depicting the annihilation of civilizations that had once believed themselves eternal. None of it slowed her. The throne room doors opened without resistance. The king rose, surrounded by advisors who trembled despite themselves. He began to speak, rehearsed authority unraveling into desperation. He offered surrender. He offered reparations. He offered anything that might preserve his life. The general did not allow him to finish. She had no interest in spectacle. No speech prepared for history. The record of this moment would not be crafted through words. She drew a compact sidearm and fired once. The weapon was calibrated for finality. The king fell, his empire's ideology collapsing with him. The general turned and left without another glance. Above the throne world, human ships disengaged. They did not occupy the planet. They did not enforce new governance. They did not claim the system. Within hours, the fleet vanished back into hyperspace, leaving behind silence and a galaxy struggling to comprehend what it had witnessed. The Dominion did not fall immediately. Empires rarely did. But without its apex, fractures spread uncontrollably. Regional powers splintered. Subject species rebelled. The fear that had held the structure together dissipated, replaced by uncertainty. Across known space, a new understanding took hold. Humanity was not peaceful because it was weak. Humanity was peaceful because it was disciplined, and when that discipline was exhausted, the response was not rage or conquest, but erasure of the problem at its source. Later centuries, scholars would debate the ethics of the war, the inevitability of the outcome, the brilliance of the strategy. They would analyze fleet compositions and tactical doctrines, searching for the secret that had allowed a minor civilization to reshape the balance of power. They would miss the simplest truth. Humanity had not changed. The galaxy had simply forced it to stop waiting, and from that day forward, whenever rising power spoke of testing the quiet species on the fringe, wiser voices would intervene, not with threats, but with remembrance. Because the galaxy had learned, at last, what happens when humanity decides that a war must end, and chooses who will not survive it.